Awesome. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our video for today, which is going to be science review of the ACT section. Today, we're going to be going over a science section from the ACT exam. You will not see a science section on the SAT, but you will see a science-related reading on the SAT. So regardless of which one you're studying for, this information will absolutely be helpful. Before we get started, I'm going to do a brief introduction of College Connect Tempe as we host this video, and then I would recommend having a piece of paper and pencil ready so that you can work with me on these practice problems. Again, for a quick overview, College Connect Tempe is your hub for advising and help with planning for anything after high school. So that can include FAFSA completion, applications, personal statements, career exploration, and job and internship searching. If any of these or anything else seems like something you might want some support with, feel free to find us, for those of you living in the city of Tempe, at your Tempe Union High Schools, or at the Tempe Public Library. And then if the scheduling doesn't really work for you, or if that's a little bit out of your distance, we also offer online and virtual options for some sessions and one-on-one advising. So after today's video, if you would like some more support with testing, you can go to tempe.gov/collegeconnect and find my name, which is Surabhi, on your dropdown and meet with me one-on-one to do some more support. If you have any other topics that you would like support with, any of our advisors can help you. And again, you'll go to the same link, which is tempe.gov/collegeconnect. Awesome. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the practice problems for today. As I mentioned, we are doing the science section. So the science section gives you 35 minutes for 40 questions. Within those 40 questions, you have 6 passages, and each passage is around 7 questions, but not exactly. Now, the really good thing is some of you might be worried about the science section because you might not know, all of the science that you think is necessary, but really this section of this exam is about reading comprehension with scientific readings. So you do need some background knowledge in science. However, it's not to the extent that you might be expecting. At least I know when I was in your shoes, I thought I had to know everything, but you really do not. It's really about interpreting graphs, interpreting results, and understanding how a study is made. So today we're doing passage 6 of this practice exam, and I chose this because it really emphasizes how important it is for you to be able to understand a study and also read the tables that are involved. The thing I really like about the science exam also is that it usually tells you exactly which table to look at, so that's going to be really helpful. But let's go ahead and get started. If you would like to go ahead and read through this study, go ahead and pause your video right now and read through it. But if not, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the questions. I'm just going to scroll here for anyone who might be reading through the study. Again, feel free to pause. But let's go ahead and get started. So in study 1, as the ratio of fructose to glucose in the sweetener solutions increase, the amount of sweetener solution consumed per rat per day is what? So ratio of glucose to fructose in the sweetener solution, we don't see that explicitly here, right? But we have to look back at this table and it tells us that ratio, fructose to glucose. So in this case, we see as we go from Q to U, the ratio increases. So we have an increasing ratio this way. I'm just going to draw that. As that ratio increases, what do we see? The same trend we see is that sweetener solution decreases. Now let's double check that's what the question is asking for. Yeah, sweetener solution consumed per day. So as the ratio increases, sweetener solution decreases. We can see that because this is the increase in ratio. And then we can see that the amount of sweetener solution consumed decreases consistently. So in that case, G is going to be our best answer, and we can select that. 35 could be measured because which of the following steps have been taken? So this is asking us to see if we understand how the experiment was built. So let's go ahead and read through study 1. So it tells us that they were assigned, the same concentration in one of 5 sweeteners. They were placed in separate cages and provided unlimited access to the assigned sweetener solution and to solid food for 56 days. Blood collected. Awesome. All right, so let's go back. So how are we able to understand the amount of sweetener solution consumed each day? Well, let's just make sure we understand what is correct so far. So we know that they're all placed in separate cages. So C can't be correct. And we know to access solids to solid food has not been restricted. In fact, the only thing that they say is unlimited. Oh yeah, they say unlimited sweetener solution and to solid food. So we know it must be between B and D. However, in this case, they're not asking about the solid food, they're asking about the sweetener solution. So in this case, D is going to be our most relevant answer because access to solid food isn't necessarily going to be critical to the amount of sweetener solution consumed, but the fact that they were placed in separate cages is going to be critical because we can measure exactly how much sweetener solution they consumed. If they were in the same cage, then if everyone was going to, maybe different types of this solutions, then we wouldn't be able to properly assess that. So that's why D is going to be our best answer. Suppose that a sweetener composed of 46% fructose and 54% glucose by mass had been tested in study 1. So before I even keep reading, I want to see which of our options that's going to be 46 to 54. So in this case, that's going to be between R and S, right? Because R is 42 to 50, and we're looking for 46 and 54. So I'm going to take a note at the question. We're looking between R and S. Now, if we go back to the question, it tells us, based on table 1 and the results of study 3, the ghrelin concentration per sample would most likely have been. So now let's go back to study 3. We know we're looking between R and S. So, this is study 2. All right, so study 3, ghrelin concentration per sample. Between R and S, they have, let's see, about 1100 to 1300, right? So it's 1125 to 1279 is going to be the correct answer. So let's see which option gives us that. 1125, 1279, that is going to be option H. So again, as you can see, the questions are not necessarily about the science, but if you're able to interpret science-based readings. Now let's see, number 37, consider the claim the group of rats that consumed the lowest amount of solid food per day per rat per day was also the lowest group that had the lowest concentration of leptin per sample. Do studies 1 and 2 support this? So let's focus on study 1. We want the lowest amount of solid food per rat per day. The one that gives us the lowest amount of solid food would have been group 1, right? So I'm just going to take notes here. Study 1, group 1 was the lowest. But now let's go back to, they said study 2. Which one had the lowest concentration of leptin? Study 5, right? Because this one's the lowest and that's to group 5. So if we look at study 2 is group 5. So in this case, the claim that they're making is that whichever group had the lowest amount of solid food consumption is the same that has the lowest concentration of leptin. Now, already we see that is not true because we have two different groups, right? Group 1 had the lowest concentration of solid food, but that was not the same group that had the lowest concentration of the leptin. So we know that this is no, right? So now we can eliminate A and B. Now let's look at C and D. Why is this not correct? Rats in group 1 consume the lowest amount of solid food, but rats in group 5 had the lowest concentration of leptin. That is correct. Now let's double check D. Rats in group 5 consume the lowest amount of solid food. That's not true. So D is basically saying the opposite of what we found. So that's also going to be incorrect. So C is our best answer in this case. All right, now let's move on to number 38. Which of the following groups of rats should have been included in study 1 to serve as a control for the effective consuming a sweetener solution on the consumption of solid food by rats? So what is a control? A control basically means a group that is not being impacted by the independent variables, which in this case is our sweetener solution, to see what the base outcome on the dependent variable would be. So in this case, our independent variable is the sweetener solution, dependent is a solid, right? So in this case, we want one that, didn't even have, let's see, I just lost my train. So we want one that didn't have access to that sweetener solution, but we want to see how much solid food they would have had. So in this case, we already know we're looking between F and J, but in this case, the rats got the sweetener solution instead of the water, which you can learn by reading the study. So therefore, we know H is the best answer because we want the control, which would be if we took out that sweetener solution, the rats still need water. So H is going to be correct. All right, looking at 39, consider the sweetener that resulted in a solid food consumption of 16 grams per rat in study 1. So which one gave us 16 grams of solid food? That's group 3 or S. Now, based on table 1, how many grams of fructose would be present in 200 grams of the sweetener? So in S, in table 1 has 50% glucose and 50% fructose. Now, so you might think immediately the answer is 50 grams, but this is not true because these are percentages. So this is out of 100, but we're looking out of 200. So which one would be 50% of 200? That would be 100 grams. So therefore, our answer is 100 grams, which is B. So again, in S, we've got 50-50. So we're basically looking for 50% of 200 is 100. So that's how we get that. All right, and then the last question of this section, the experimental designs of 2 and 3 were identical with respect to which of the factors? So this is making sure that we understand like the experimental design of this process. So let's see what's in common. So if we look at the options, they're talking about the indicator and the hormone that gives the indicator color, right? Or the hormone with which the indicator reacted. So let's see if they even have the same indicator. You don't need to know what an indicator is in this case, but an indicator is used to, in general, identify the pH or to realize if something is acidic or basic. And so an indicator is put into a solution and it'll react to form a certain color. That color will tell you if it's more acidic or more basic. So now let's see if we look in study 2, they use indicator N. All right, and then that reacts with leptin to form a blue dye. Versus if we scroll down to study 3, we have indicator P, which reacts with ghrelin to form a yellow dye. So we see that actually nothing is in common between these indicators. We have N and P, so those are already different. They're reacting with leptin and ghrelin, which are also different hormones. So therefore, we know that neither of those are kept in common. So therefore, it's neither 1 nor 2. So J is our best answer. And yeah, that's the end of that section. Hopefully that kind of eases some of your minds if you're worried about knowing too much science. My recommendation, if you are worried about science, is to just do some general reading. You can find some readings online, do some practice problems, and you'll see what kind of concepts you haven't been familiar with. But honestly, most importantly, you have to be familiar with how to read graphs and tables. So if that's where you're really struggling, I really recommend doing as much practice as you can. If you are getting confused on those questions, schedule a one-on-one appointment and we can work together to figure out like how to read those graphs in a way that works best for you. If you're also studying for the science section, some other things I would recommend studying is just knowing some elements, how to read an element. So, if it says what the atomic mass is, what that means, what a charge is, and then also understanding pH. So pH of 7 is neutral, pH less than 7 is going to be very acidic versus pH more than 7 is going to be basic. So just knowing what that means will also be helpful. But as you can clearly see, there are so many tables and graphs in this part of the exam that you have to be able to recognize in order to do well on this section. So hopefully that helped clear up some information for you all and you were able to do some practice. If you do have any remaining questions, as I've mentioned a million times by now, please feel free to reach out and schedule an appointment and we can work with you individually to make sure you understand how to do these problems. Other than that, we are all set for today. So thank you for watching and have an amazing day.